Well, Ashley, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I love hanging out with you.
I know it'll be so much fun. This is the third season, the first of the third season of the Self-Help Junkie. I'm super excited to be doing this again.
Amazing. I love this podcast.
You're so sweet. Yeah, it was so interesting because we had a great first two seasons, and Janine got super busy with it. Man, talk about a busy girl. She had so many things going on and that were really demanding of her time. And so that's what she's doing. And I thought, well, we'll just have a different co-host every time. So I'm thank you so much for, I know you have two other podcasts that you do as well. So, and twins and work. And so I'm super excited to have you joining me for this. And maybe do you want to do a quick little intro about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Oh gosh, I don't even know how to do my intro anymore. Okay. So my name is Ashley Loeb Blassingame. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I celebrated 18 years, January 7th, 2006. Sorry, I celebrated 18 years, January 7th of this year. Oh my gosh. See? I co-founded a company called Lion Rock Recovery. We were the first online virtual outpatient program for substance use disorders, and recently sold that and am out doing consulting. I'm a mom. I have 7-year-old twin boys, married. I live in Southern California. I have a podcast called The Courage to Change, a recovery podcast, and I'm the host of a true crime podcast called The Missing USA.
What do you do with your spare time?
Yeah.
Do you sleep ever?
I stare at the wall.
And you just finished your MBA, so
I did.
congratulations. Yeah, that was
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. Yes, I
Yeah.
finished my I can you tell I am an overdoer?
Slight overachiever, girl
Like,
after my own
yeah.
heart, workaholic. I love it.
Well, it
Um,
plays into like it plays into the
yeah.
self-help junkie, all that stuff, because the way that I get my self-esteem, right, is by always trying to find a way to go to the next level. And in some ways, that's a really positive thing. And in other ways, it can be too much. So it can be used as the dopamine hit, the self-help portion of it. So it's this
Mhm.
balance. But the truth is that I can make anything maladaptive, anything. Like you give me anything healthy, I will happily show you how to overdo it and make it unhealthy. It's just this innate talent I have.
You my sister from another mister is what you is.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's listen, this is why we're self-help junkies, right? I love to consume information. I love that dopamine hit. And you and I were just laughing before we hit record about how we always have these intentions of how this information is going to be useful at some point. And
Yep.
and I'm like, I call bullshit. So
It's useful because I can tell someone about it. Right? Like someone will be talking, like, I read this book and this is what they did.
yeah, and to be fair, like in the line of work that you
Yeah.
do, and
Yeah.
especially with Lion Brock, I'm sure that information came in handy. And as a coach, I do find that the information I'm consuming is helpful to pass along, but I never pass it along in the intention
Yeah.
with which I intend, and also do not apply it in the way that I intend. So this is sort of the solution for that. So, we're going to be talking about the last episode, which was how to reprogram your mind. I got your homework and I was like, oh my God, she's serious, like so thorough. And I'm just going to rattle off what
Yeah.
the action items were for last week. So we were talking about reprogramming your subconscious mind. And the three action steps were a writing exercise. The question was, what do you want and why don't you have it? So we want to list as many reasons as we can think of. And your list was so long, I was like, oh yeah, she's a total overachiever. I had like three things. And then reframe the negative belief to the positive, and then watch the YouTube hypnosis to reprogram specific beliefs. So, You did all the writing exercises, but I already, spoiler alert, you didn't get around to the YouTube hypnosis ones. What was there something that got in the way with that? Was it like a lack of time or what was that?
Yeah, I'm in a place right now where it's summer and I have the boys an unusual amount of time. And so I'm trying to manage them, get us ready for summer, implement a new schedule, camps, all the things. And we just got back from a trip, so resettling into that. And then also set aside time for work and using without childcare at the moment, which is something that we've never done before. So it is quite literally a work in progress, and this is perfect timing for me because it put into perspective, like, here are the things I want, here are the reasons why I don't have it or I don't believe I have it, and the lack of time came up a lot
Yeah.
in the list.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I was almost like, I'm glad you didn't do it because that's something that I think is really important is we need to problem solve for the action items that we intended to do and wanted to do, but it didn't happen. So, usually in my mind, so we usually apply these to SMART goals. So,
Mhm.
and I feel like, listen, your schedule is pretty unreasonable. Is, is that a fair statement? It's
Yeah, that's
unreasonable at this
a fair
time.
statement. Mhm.
So maybe this kind of work will be a little more reasonable during a different season, like once the kids go back to school or something like that. But one of the things that keeps coming up for me when I don't do something I intend to do is that it's when I tell myself I was too busy, usually that means it wasn't a priority, which is
Right.
fair considering you know, your situation and all you were juggling.
It is, and also I can make one or two of those things on that list a priority, or I can make baby steps towards moving the things forward. One of the I have a skill that I'm not implementing, which is project
Interesting.
management, right? I built a company. I was able to move projects forward along a sorry uh, along a wide range of departments and subjects and all that. I'm not using any of those skills that I have on these problems, right? Like saying, okay, well, it's like in Atomic Habits talks about if you improve 1% a day, right? You by the end of the year, you're 37% better. Well, some of these things, if I do one thing a month, it's still moving the project forward and I'm still prioritizing the other things, right? It's just looking at it differently. Because when I look at the list, I'm not using any of those skills. I just see this big long list. I just see this like no time gaps. Like you don't,
Right.
it has to be broken down. And I'm not using any of those skills on these things.
That's really interesting that you mention a skill because I was just sort of, what came up for me doing these exercises was, um, and part of some of the writing that I'm doing for a book is I'm examining growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And maybe a little more triggering language is like a victim mentality. I just recognize that in myself when I was doing my exercises of what I want and why didn't I have it was this language of I can't. And to me, like I learned a long time ago that can't is a victim word. So I'm like, oh, hypervigilant, don't want to be a victim. So
All that
like
self-help we have comes out in certain ways.
It's not funny. But yeah, that was let's go over some of the, so you did do a lot of the assignment, which was identifying what you want and why you don't have it. So let's just talk about a couple of them because I saw like a reoccurring theme.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at your list. You want to build a consulting business that includes consulting on projects in large and small related to digital behavior health and chronic conditions. You have a deep experience, deep knowledge base for that. Uh,
Right.
reasons why you don't have it. Do you want to kind of go over some of the reasons?
Sure. So I have a consulting business, right? I have a business that is somewhat established. I have clients, but it's not what I would consider robust and moving forward. And I'm not doing the stuff to continue to make sure that fire burns, fire being clients in the
Marketing and
yeah. It's not, it's hobbling along. So I have not sat down and written out a business plan in the way that I would have others write out a business plan, that I would
Mm,
coach someone else to do it. I have not, my accounting isn't done in a way that I would do it for any other business, right? Like I have decided somewhere in this process to allow myself kind allow myself off the hook, quote unquote, off the hook
right.
of like my standards. Well, what happens when I take myself off that hook of my standards? Well, I get substandard. I get something I don't want, right?
Right. Right.
Those standards I have for myself are based on things that I want. It's not about making myself miserable. It's that it's like what in Atomic Habits, it talks about thinking about who you want to be and thinking about the systems. And
Mhm.
I I know how to do that. And I'm going, well, why don't I have it? Well, you didn't put the systems in place, right?
I
But
noticed that. Yeah.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
don't have the systems and the business plan, a legitimate business plan that has all the things that I want, where I can draw from and create an action plan. I haven't done it. I've done a half-assed job of that. And then the time issue. So, you know, I believe that I can certainly carve out enough time and I can wake up earlier. Like there's things that I can do. There's things I did while I was in business school. I had 2-year-old twin boys and I was working full time in order to get that done. I know how to do it. I just am feeling tired.
Yeah.
And so I think, I carving out that time. So reason I haven't had reasons why I don't have it. My legitimate business plan doesn't have me on track for that. And my I haven't carved out the time for myself in order to make it happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I noticed, I'm looking at your homework assignment that you sent me, that so you have identified your limiting beliefs. So I'm not organized enough to create a business plan or marketing plan, not enough time. Um, the competing with family for time, that's sort of, I would say those are probably the same
Yeah.
things. Too tired, no energy. So those are not prioritizing self-care. Let's talk about the positive reframes. What was that? What was it like for you to do the exercise and put these in the positive reframes? Were you able to see some solution or some light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes. Yes, the reframes were really good. I think right. So positive reframes, going to the first limiting belief that we're talking about. I
Yeah.
am not organized enough to create a business plan or marketing plan. Now, I don't actively think that in my head, to be clear,
Mm-hmm.
but what the assignment did was it drew out that limiting belief
Yeah.
on what I said, right? So the value of that is I don't even realize that I'm acting out a limiting belief because I'm not thinking those exact words. But then I see those exact words and I'm like, oh, well, I don't want that. I don't,
Right.
that I don't actually believe that, but I'm acting as if I do. So the reframe is, well, I have the capability, right? So it's,
Hmm.
I'm not organized enough to create a business plan or marketing plan. I have the capability to create a business and marketing plan, period, full stop.
You have the skills.
I
Yeah.
have the skills. I have the skills. Full stop. Okay. I can start small, dedicating a specific time each week to develop and refine these plans, right? It, again, I hate this term, but like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Right. Yeah.
The worst. It's the
It's
worst.
not a great analogy, but yeah,
The
a
worst
very
analogy.
common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that is, I always see, oh my gosh, it's so big, right? And so I have the ability to do small things every week, and I have the capability. So right there, that's a positive reframe for that limiting belief.
Yeah. Do you, so are you is it a procrastination thing? Like you look at all the things you have to do, you don't have a clear priority, and so you feel stressed out and then you don't.
I don't know if other people are like this. I'm assuming they are, but I, it takes me a little bit to get to the flow of creation, of working on
Mm,
something. I need, like,
yeah.
I can't be doing the mom thing and cleaning the house and doing the thing with the kids and blah 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 blah. I mean, that's how my kids are. They're very, boys always.
They're
My
7. Yeah.
Yeah, they're 7-year-old boys. One came in with a stick and a kitchen knife and was like sharpening the
He's
stick.
whittling.
He's whittling the stick in my bedroom this morning with the knife at me, and was like, "Is this okay?" I'm like, "Oh my God." Um,
Absolutely not.
so I'll send you a picture of what they're doing right now. They use the back of surfboards as a slip and slide into the pool. Um, so it's just,
What could go wrong?
what could go wrong? Yeah, exactly. So going from that level of intensity and a whole different
Right.
brain frame, and then
Yeah.
I could sit down, like if you gave me 15 minutes, right? I feel
Yeah.
like it takes me a good 10 minutes to get into a space and like really think about what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to express, maybe
Yeah.
check an email. Like part of the struggle with carving out the time is that it takes me a bit to drop into the productivity. And
Yeah.
I, so, therefore, my brain says you don't have enough time to do the thing
Yeah.
because you don't have enough time to drop into a productive set of things to do. Does that make
That's
sense?
that's actually fair. There have been studies that show that task switching takes about 20 minutes.
Oh, really? Well, there you go.
Yeah. So yeah, there have been studies done, and I remember being, in working at tech companies, and I would get pulled in 10 different directions at all time. And at the end of the day, I was like, what did I even do? But it was because it would take me a few minutes to go from one task
Yep.
to another. So that's actually very legitimate. And if you can switch in 10 minutes, you're actually 50% more efficient than most people. So
Right.
congratulations, you
Oh,
win.
thank you. Thank you. I win. Yeah,
Yes.
it's so the time feels like, um, it feels like I need more quiet, reflective creation time to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
into some of the things that I'm doing. So
Okay,
I,
that seems fair. So structuring your calendar in a way that you can do dedicated time blocking.
yeah, and maybe that's more of a, maybe that indicates that it needs to be the first thing I do in the day, right? Or, after
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, they do say that if a task that requires the most cognitive load should be done first thing in the day.
see, all this stuff. There you go.
I'm a
There you go. There
self-junkie.
you go. So I have the capability to
Hmm.
do the creation. I can start small and I need to talk it out and ask for help. These are all skills that I have that I haven't been employing. And in part because I haven't done, no one's given me the homework assignment, right? Like I'm great at
Yeah.
homework assignments. And
Yes, you are.
but I think that that's my entry into applying the self-help. And I think a lot of people would benefit from actually doing the work, not just listening to it, because that's how we get into what we're actually going to change.
Yeah, I actually have grand plans of doing workshops, like holding afternoon workshops where we can start applying some of this stuff, but that's on the to-do list right after the book.
Yeah.
Um, I actually did the exercise myself, and I'll just share one that I did. Um, Something that has been the fucking bane of my existence since I started working for myself was growing a social media following on Instagram. So my limiting belief is like, what do I want? Well, I want 20,000 followers to start, that's kind of the thing that I wanted. And I feel like it's so dumb when I say it, but I feel like it would be important because the more followers I have on social media, the better guests I can get on the podcast.
Right. It's a marketing. It's related to marketing. It's
Yeah,
business.
it's managing optics, really is what it is. Because there are some people that just will not come on the podcast unless you have a very large following.
Yeah.
You know, big download numbers, significant social media platforms, all that stuff. So, you know, I just kind of was spitballing, like I just pulled 20,000 out of the air. Let's be real, I would like to have 100,000.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
but listen, I'm at
It
like
can
under
start with 20.
I'm under 4,000. So let's, you know, I'm just trying to be semi-realistic. But anyway, the reasons why I don't have what I want is I can't figure it out. There's that victim word, but that was the truth. That was like the first thing I was like, I can't figure this out. I've been trying for years, can't figure it out. I suspect that I've been inconsistent. Like that's one of the first things that you hear in all these classes, that you need to be consistent, right? And what happens for me is I don't see results. I get discouraged and I take a break. I'm
Mm,
currently on a break right now. Um, and I don't plan ahead. Like social media is no joke. Like you have to sort of identify your avatar, who is your target market, what do they care about,
yes.
what are their problems, and
Yeah.
you know, what are your content pillars? There's a lot of planning that goes
Yeah. It's a marketplace.
into a successful social media campaign. And so I said that I don't plan ahead, that is like, I just get overwhelmed. It's too much. I have other priorities. So it falls by the wayside. So my reframe was I can take a class, I can hire help, and I can put it on the calendar. Like I was doing batch creating at one point,
Mhm.
and that was productive. So I actually took action on this. I actually signed up for a class
Oh,
and I hired my editor. I said, "Hey, I bought this class. Will you take it? Will you take the class for me and come up with some content?" You know, I'll probably work with her on the content and stuff. But that was kind of my
yeah.
solution. Like, there's a lot of, you know, self-honesty that is required of me when I think about, you know, why am I not hitting my goals? Right? Like what's really going on? And the truth of the matter is that right now it's not a priority. It's Peter Drucker. He is like this really famous management guy, this business guy, and he said if you have more than three priorities, you don't have any.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, that is so true. Because you know, I'm 60,000 words into a book. I'm about halfway through the second rewrite. Um, but I was trying to do self-help junkie, the ODAT podcast. I have a coaching business, trying to do the social media marketing, trying to promote all these courses that I have and all these offers. You know, it's a lot. But there's a strategy that if you just focus on one thing and bring that project, oh, you're a project manager, so you know this. When you focus on one project and bring it, if you put all your energy into it, you bring it to completion, then you can move on to the next project and you can actually finish all your projects in a smaller amount of time than if you try to do a little bit on each one. Is that fair?
It depends. Yes,
It
it is.
depends,
It's
but
yes, it's more, that is an easier, more appropriate thought process when and when it's a company or when it's something you're moving, you have the overarching goal, you have your priorities, but you're moving a lot of little things forward at once. But I do think that, look, they taught us this in 12 step. What you focus on will grow. Whether that's in
yeah.
a person, like a relationship, so as it relates to, I can't remember, you'll probably remember the phrasing, but it was basically like, if I focus on my resentment will grow. If I focus on my gratitude will grow. There's a,
Yeah, that's sort of like the good wolf and the bad wolf analogy.
I don't know that one. Tell me.
Oh, you don't? The parable of the wolves? Okay,
Mhm.
let me see if I can get this right. But there's like a young boy talking to grandpa, and the grandpa, am I going to say this right? He's telling his grandson about the two wolves. It's like there's like the positive side, and which is the good wolf, and then there's the negative side, which is the bad wolf, and the forget how it goes exactly, but the basic premise is the grandson wants to know which wolf survives, and he says, well, whichever one you feed the most.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it kind of goes along with like Abraham Hicks,
yeah,
law of attraction, or, what you think about, you bring about, so all that stuff. It really is about what you focus on, which is priorities. Like what is your priority?
right, right. What you water will grow. It sounds super cheesy, but my experience is that it's pretty accurate with,
Yeah.
with rare exceptions, things of course happen, but a lot of the time I believe in those, what we believe are exceptions, we don't realize that we're feeding, right? Like something we're doing is actually feeding this other thing. And
Yeah.
that's why we think it's an anomaly. But it really is about focus. And I think that's what makes it so hard to manage so many different roles. And
Yeah.
that would put me on my millennial mom, working mom soapbox, which is we were set up to fail. But um, but that being said, I do think that figuring out how to make, I like that three priorities,
Yeah.
broad priorities, right? You can have projects within those priorities, but if it always is back to the overarching goal, it's why companies have mission statements. It's like,
Hmm.
what's the
Yeah. A
point?
focus.
A focus. We can always come back at my company. We had, we spent an inordinate amount of time working on our mission statement, and we called it our creed.
Hmm.
And as those of us, the founders, we hated mission, like we thought they were so hokey and doing this. So we were like, we're gonna make this legit. Like this is our creed for real, for reals. And in it, we describe that the basis for the company is that we do right by the client, period, full stop.
Okay.
And what that did was we would be in meetings and there would be something that was in a gray area. There would be something that
Mm.
lost money. There would be something that there would be a decision, a judgment call that would be made. And we would literally bring in that, like, the essence of the creed, which was, is this the right thing by the client? Is it,
Right.
period? And sometimes it lost us money, sometimes it was a gray area, whatever it was, but it always served us. And I found it helpful to just go, you can get into all these complicated problems. And when you have that direction, that wind in your sails, like that identity, as it talks about in Atomic Habits,
Yeah.
it can help guide those judgment calls.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I suffer from, too many priorities and too many activities and things. And what was coming up for me was, like, when I was in sales, the VP would always say, is this a revenue generating activity?
Yep.
And so in business, like as I'm doing marketing and social media and things like that, I was like, is this moving the needle? And it seemed to be an obstacle that was too high the way I was doing it. So I decided this is taking a disproportionate amount of my time and it's not having an ROI. So I just need to set it aside and focus on completing something that I do believe will move the needle. Like I'm about halfway done with this book. As soon as I can publish it, I do believe that will move the needle and affect my social media. Doing traditional PR and stuff like that, that will generate ROI, a return on my investment of time. And this whole, they say that a definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. Like the way I'm doing social media isn't working. So I just have decided that to just outsource it. Like
Right.
I've been trying to do it myself and it's not working. I've tried to outsource it before. So I think if I'm going to try to do it in a different way. So it's not exactly the same thing. So I don't feel quite insane, but the majority of my time needs to be spent on publishing the book. And I feel like that'll move the needle more than
Yeah.
trying to fuck with social media.
Yeah. I like that.
So let's talk about, we sort of alluded to it. We've been talking about, we've mentioned Atomic Habits for our new topic. And so I always, when we talk about the new topic, I like to talk about what it is, why it's important, and then come up with some action items. And I had sent you, I'm in love with this new teacher. I love teachers. And this kid who just turned 30, I'm 55. I'm like, I'm embarrassed to say that I love this guy as my new teacher. Ali Abdal,
Mhm.
he wrote a book called Positive Productivity. And I'm obsessed with it because it's the opposite of hustle culture. It's the opposite of, we always think of we need to be more disciplined, which feels heavy and grindy and zero fun. And so his whole thing is positive productivity is introducing things like play and people and empowerment to be productive, but in a way that energizes you instead of drains your energy. So that's kind of his whole thing. That's why I like him as a teacher. His teaching is on YouTube is like very clear and concise and easy to consume. So he's my new crack. He's my new
Well,
as
you
as a
gotta,
self-help junkie, he's
yeah,
my new
yeah, you
crack.
gotta have crack. That's the one to do.
Yeah, he's my new crack. So I sent you that little 30-second video clip. So it wasn't like a ton of time to consume it. But the reason why I thought James Clear's book was so important, it's like, okay, so James Clear wrote it. He sold over 20 million copies. And yeah, it's amazing. And so I bought the Audible first.
Mhm.
And if I like a book enough, I will buy the hard copy as well. And I did that with this book. It was that good because there was a lot of content in the book that had some like writing exercises, and it was difficult to, there's like some journaling prompts. I love a good worksheet. I'm a sucker for a good worksheet.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I could tell by the homework you sent me. I was like, whoa, that was amazing. So I did buy the book and have sat with it and done the actual work and actually implemented it into my life and have seen. So the basic premise of Atomic Habits is you do something that's 1%, you're like improve by 1% every day over time. Like I think over a year, you improve by 37 times or something, he said. So I think I sent you. Let me see. Let me check my own. Did I send you an email about the atomic habits, like the
I'm
five
in
lessons?
I'm in the worksheet that you have.
Okay. So I'll just cover his in Atomic Habits, there are 5 lessons or 5 points that he really brings up, and I can just go over them quickly, which is habits being all you need to do is be 1% better every day. And then he talks about systems versus goals. And what I thought was, and you mentioned systems too, what I thought was really interesting about the systems, it's focusing on the how, not the end result.
Mhm.
It's like how you do something. It's that old saying that we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training or systems. I think he uses that.
Systems. It's really true. It's really true.
Yeah, so if we don't have systems in place that are actions that really are don't require a lot of cognitive load, it's like a set of predetermined decisions
Mhm.
is how I think of systems.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, so he says focus on systems, not the end result. And I think too, especially when it comes to something like social media, if like I would always get focused on the end result, like is the following growing or not? And if it didn't, I would get discouraged, right? And then I would quit on it rather than thinking about, am I enjoying the process of creating content? Like, does it bring me joy?
Right.
Right.
And also with that, I'll have this, I have this following, but what about engagement? Like how many people are actually
Yeah.
engaging, how many people, so there's you can get I in the Abraham Hicks talks about being very specific about what you're looking for, because you can say I want 20,000 followers and none of them will engage, right? And it's like, well, what do you want to do with those 20,000 followers? And
Yeah.
if you see on my goals list, you'll see I got very specific with some of the things.
Yeah.
And
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah.
I'm trained to think
Be
through.
specific.
I'm trained to think through what it is that I actually want. Because sometimes I'll tell you
Right.
the journey to get there when actually that's not what I'm saying. So with systems, and this was super important with building a company, which is that when you're small and it's simple, it feels like you don't need a symptom and you can just make it up as you go. But as whatever the thing is, as it grows, it becomes more complex. And that system that you implemented in the beginning will save you. It'll break
Right.
and you'll rejigger it and you'll rewrite the system. But if there is a system to rewrite, it will save you as you grow. And I saw what happened when we didn't do that. And I saw what happened when we did. And every single time, the system was the determinant of how much time was wasted on getting to that goal or getting to the goal at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. That's really good. That's really interesting. That's almost like that's how McDonald's grew. They implemented systems, and so the processes were refined and made more
Yep.
efficient, and the training was established. So every single McDonald's ran the same way, and the end result was that customers had a very predictable experience.
Right.
Yeah, that they could count on.
And a predictable, if you think about it, a predictable experience, a predictable outcome,
A
right?
predictable outcome.
Right. So you can predict the outcome because of the system,
Right.
AKA the system determines the outcome. And
Right.
if you refine that system, then the outcome will come, that it'll happen. But
Yeah.
the system is where it's the machine, right, that you have
Yeah.
to build. And sometimes we talk about wanting the 20,000 or whatever. I'm just making this up, but like wanting the 20,000 thing. But what we really want is engagement. We'd rather have 10,000 people that talk to us every day, 10,000 people that are engaging all the time. But
Yeah.
we're not, we're deciding that 20,000 equals this other thing. And so
Right. Yeah.
the system is getting really deep down into what is the system and what is the actual outcome that we want.
That brings up a really good point because in my mind, it's really not the followers I want. I am in business. I do want to make money. And, it's a long road. It's like a long way around to get to what I really want. I was talking about getting good guests for the podcast.
Right, right.
So this sort of all feeds into so in my mind, it's like I have all these little obstacles that I'm probably overcomplicating. Who imagine that? Who could have predicted
You're in
that?
great company.
Who who could have predicted that? I'm thinking, oh, if I have a big following, then it'll help the podcast grow. And if the podcast grows, then I can sell ads. I can book more coaching clients. I could sell more courses or offers. And so really the end result is about money.
Right. So
And so
then
like,
then it's like, okay, so is that the priority? Right. The priority isn't the followers.
it's not. Yeah.
It's the system. The
Yeah.
system that you look at the goal. How do we build a system that's going to create a funnel that's going to create this thing? And so that piece of it, it's very much, what's it called? It's motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing,
Mm.
where you ask someone, why do you want that? Like, you keep
And what's
asking.
important about that? And what's
Right.
important about that?
The next thing you know, you have uncovered something, and with
Yeah.
no true, skilled genius, but you've uncovered something there that we didn't even realize. Like, I have to ask myself, what is it that I really want? What is it that what am I
Yeah.
really trying to get? And then I can make up a
Yeah.
whole system and a plan, and
Yeah.
it's something, and I do it with my kids all the time. We get down to like, what is the outcome you're looking for? And I say to them, did you get the outcome you wanted? No.
Yeah.
Okay, so can we say that that probably isn't a behavior we're going to repeat because you didn't get what you wanted and it sucked? How about that? Right? This sucks, right? We can all agree. And you didn't
Yeah.
get what you wanted. So if we're in the business of outcomes, right? We're in the business of getting what we want,
Yeah.
then when something doesn't deliver us what we want, we need to look at it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's so funny. All these principles, they apply to business, they
Right.
apply to raising
Right.
kids,
Yep.
like, yeah, it all goes together. I love that. Um, let me see. I got through habits and systems. That's really
Yep.
important. Identity was the other one that they was one of the five. So he says to focus on who you want to be, not what you want to achieve. And I really felt like this was um an offshoot of Simon Sinek's what is your why? Right. When we identify what, it's like your best future self. What is the identity that I want to be? If I want to be an athlete, then I need to do athletic things. An athlete does
Right.
athletic
Right.
things. If I want
Right.
to be successful on social media, it's like then you educate and entertain and engage, right? And if I'm not doing any of those things, then that's really not part of my identity, right?
Right. This is one that I think I need to do more work on. I was taught, how do you want to feel?
Oh, but I still think that applies.
It does apply. So I was taught that you think about how I want to feel powerful, and I want to, what the person that you want to be, how do you want to feel?
That's
And
the embodiment.
embodiment, right?
Yeah.
And the what is your why? I gotta say, I need more work on this because my husband works for actually a really amazing Fortune, I think it's Fortune 500 um corporation, and they always do the, like, what is your why? He's in sales, and they do these workshops on what is your why. And it just sounds so cheesy to me,
But it's the
where
same thing as like what's important about that and what's important about that. And like
right,
getting down
right.
to what it is that you really want. It's like the same thing.
I know, but I'm like, so that can, what your why into, they talk about your why into selling this product. And
Hmm.
I just I need to do more work on it because I haven't done the, like, layout, and it's a perfect example of, from the outset I'm like, ugh, what is your why? Like, sounds so cheesy, but if I were to go in and probably do the work, like write it out, I'm like, oh, I get it. I probably really see that this is important for my identity.
Yeah, it's so funny. I feel like we all have like this resistance that we bump up
Mhm.
against. But if we knew what the answer to our problems were, we would have done it already. Right.
Right.
So, logically speaking, it's going to be something that we haven't considered or haven't done before.
Yeah.
So maybe that's actually a sign that you're on the right path, is doing something that you've previously dismissed. Maybe the resistance is the sign that you're getting close. That's what Stephen Pressfield talks about. He wrote about it in the War of Art.
Oh,
He
I
talks,
love that.
I know, right? It's all about
I've read that in a
resistance.
long time.
Yeah, and in that book, he did talk about, the more resistance you feel, the closer you are to your answer, which I thought was really interesting, which
I
kind of
mean,
seems to.
I am the queen of resistance. I am the queen of resistance. So many, with people, with things, right? I, everything I have done, that is great. I have said would never work, and I won't do it, and it's stupid. With my company, school, my relationships, friendships. Like, I have several of my closest friends started out with me getting in a fight with them because, like, it's just, I'll never drive that car, drove that car. Like, it's just so funny to me. And I also, I'm never going to do a podcast. That was also another,
Too.
I'm never, like, oh, I mean, I could go, the list is, so now when I find myself doing that, I'm like, so basically in a year, that's what I'll be doing. I suppose it's
Yeah.
just, it's this
You just give
pattern.
it up smooth now, huh?
Now I just see it. I'm like, well, kind of like you said, like, now I'm like, oh, I resist things. I pressure test. I resist things that maybe
Pressure
are
test.
pulling at me.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, everybody does it. And it's sort of like that idea of the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to enter
Mm.
kind of thing. Um, so, I am currently obsessed with this idea right now of, internal family systems and specifically addressing polarized parts. Because, what I know from being a self-help junkie is that we know what to do, but we don't take action on it. And I think of it as like sort of the knowledge action gap. There's that we have and I have a friend that is like super into internal family system. She's like, oh, that's polarized parts. And I was like, fuck, if we could create a class around, you know, merging our polarized parts, there's a part that wants to be successful and a part that's afraid and needs to be safe. And there is a process of integrating those two parts there. Like, so all the parts get their needs met, they feel safe, and you can still make forward progress.
I do, and it's, I always say this, it's been my favorite job I've ever had, interventions. And one
I
of the,
saw that on your list. That's intense.
yeah, I love them.
Yeah.
Everyone in the room, their butthole is puckered to the side, to the size of a pinhole. And I am as calm as a cucumber. I've never been so calm in my life. Um,
Good in a crisis.
hashtag childhood trauma. But
Right.
the but one of the things about that is that what I do in those scenarios, and I do at other places, this conflict resolution is always that finding ways to get everybody's needs met. And so
Wow.
it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that I have to know what your need is in order to be able to meet it. And so a lot of the time people say what their need is, but that's not the actual need. So
Oh,
I have to be the person that goes, that's not what it is. And then I go in and I dig and I dig, and then I find the need, and then I find the way to meet it. And then I find the way to meet all the needs. And now we're coming to that point, and that's where you get everybody to change, because you meet all the needs and no one has any more excuses, but you have to know what the needs are. And that's kind of the fun, is the rewarding, is what the word is, rewarding
right.
part of it. And same thing of internal family systems. And it's the same thing in hostage negotiation. It's the same thing in negotiating with my children, my husband,
Right.
my insurance
Yeah.
company. It's like, you need this, I need this. What if we did this? And
Right.
it it is such an important skill. It probably the most important skill in terms of getting things that you want in life.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I'll enlist your help when we do the polarized
Oh, I'd
parts
love to.
workshop.
It's my favorite.
Okay.
My favorite. I mean, I'll tell you, I had an intervention. Okay. The mother, the father was a white supremacist. He and the mother were divorced. The mother married an African man. I mean, dark, like
Like
not like
Nigerian.
Yes, he wasn't Nigerian, but yes, like African man. They had not spoken in 15 years. It was so contentious.
Wow.
I had them in the same room with all the family, all of them, with doing the intervention in the same family sitting across, and I got them to cooperate and got them to sit in the same room and not kill each other and not whatever, all the things, right? And we were able to have conversations and focus on helping, their child. But
Oh, wow.
you have to get so clear on what the right, like what the outcomes are, and it works. Like, it actually, you can, I bring up that situation because it's the most polarizing thing, and yet you can use
Yeah.
that, you can take those same skills that you're talking about in IFS and make them work in just the most contentious areas. And it's so cool.
That's amazing. And so it sort of reminds me of Silence of the Lambs when Clarice was talking to Dr. Lecter and he was like psychoanalyzing. She's like, yeah, but can you turn that laser onto yourself? And so it's like, that's what we need to do. So we need to take all these
Of course
skills that
not.
we,
Of course
of
not.
course not. Yeah, well, listen, you can't read the label from inside the jar, right? So we
I
have to
mean,
help each other.
that's the reality. That is the people. I don't know if people said this to you, but people always say to me like, "Oh, you're going to be so prepared when your kids, like if your kids have issues with mental health or substance use or whatever." I'm thinking to myself,
Mhm.
"Are you kidding me? I'm good when it's your kid. I'm not good when it's my kid. Like it's
Yeah.
not the same.
Yeah.
I'm in the mix. I'm in the tornado. I'm good when
Yeah.
I'm outside of the tornado."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why we need each other, because we're not all crazy on the same day.
Exactly.
And I really believe that it's about emotion is the thing that colors our perspective, right? We can't see clearly when we're emotional. So, it can no longer be objective. So I think it's important. That's why it's important to have like an objective third party, meaning the person is able to be objective because they're not emotionally involved.
Yeah. And there's
So,
data to back the body keeps the score, which is my favorite book ever of all time.
yeah.
Um, for a self-help junkie, it should also be,
Yes, I am
your top
familiar.
five. It should be any self-help junkie's top five. But it talks about like you can't separate out emotions from cognition. The brain doesn't
Right.
work. And so
Yeah. Your
that
amygdala goes into fear mode, it goes
right,
offline, and then
it,
it's
it,
all emotion.
they're connected. And so
Yeah.
once you really digest that, it helps you to understand and to think about how we make decisions.
Yeah. That's really good. Um, so that was identity.
We'll make it there. We'll make it through.
Yeah. So the next one is about behavior. So he has 4 laws. So make it obvious, attractive, satisfying, and easy. And he actually has, James Clear has a worksheet that you can actually download that helps you follow the 4 laws. So a behavior change. And so one of the examples that he uses for the obvious was like if your goal is to do push-ups every day, then he talks about habit stacking to make it obvious. So attaching, so he's like, okay, before I get up in the morning to go to the bathroom or go to the bathroom and then I come out and immediately do like 10 push-ups. So he's kind of attaching, like that's his cue, right?
Yeah.
To make it obvious. I don't know how attractive that is, but it would be satisfying to be able to check something off the
It-
box and
it-
not difficult.
so yeah, I would love, I need to do that worksheet. I was curious about the like the m- metrics of obvious, attractive, satisfying, and easy as it relates to certain things, because I feel like what's obvious to me may not be obvious to others.
Yeah, and I think, when emotion is involved, like, the to-do list, my running to-do list can be so overwhelming that it creates fear in me. It's paralyzing. I catastrophize, all these emotions that just take me offline, and it's not obvious what needs to get done.
Right. But
Right.
it is when I say like what's obvious to me isn't obvious to others and vice versa. What I mean by that is, I on my list, I have stuff around meal prep and food. Well,
Uh,
real obvious what to do. I mean, this is not rocket science of like how to overcome this stuff, but I struggle with disordered eating and food issues, and
mm,
so eh, the obvious things to do with that behavior, it 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 doesn't take into account the fact that there are real emotional issues. Like I
right.
am uncomfortable in the kitchen, period. End of story. Like I freeze up things that are easy and obvious, and there's
Mm.
no rhyme or reason why I struggle with it. I just do. So taking into, and maybe that's where the systems or the identity piece like balance it out.
Yeah, that could be. There is he does I think a time audit or activity audit. There is another worksheet where and I've done this before, and I actually started keeping a running list of to-dos because I was like, what do I actually accomplish during the day? Because I need to see what activities that I'm doing to then be able to go back over the week and go, okay, did any of these activities move the needle? And if not, then I need to change the systems, basically. So So this is my sort of attempt. I actually just do the checklist because I want to feel productive at the end of the day.
Love me a checklist.
I love me a checklist. Or it helps me to prioritize because I feel like I have a ton of things to do. And it does help me to because sometimes I get overwhelmed, my brain goes offline. I was like, what was I supposed to do again today? And so sometimes that does get me back on track. But okay, so that's another exercise, and patience, which I feel like is almost not worth mentioning because that's kind of obvious that small tasks over time with a little bit of patience and consistency lends to getting the outcomes that we want.
I think patience is probably the hardest because it's when you just have to practice. It's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good. And you just practice it over
Yeah.
and over. And then it gets easier.
That's so funny. I'm like, but we don't even need to talk about that. But when I talked about being inconsistent, it's like I push it and it doesn't get the outcome I want. So I get discouraged and quit. Not patient.
I mean, the only reason I talk about, I'm like, I literally saw this 5 lessons and I was like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do patience.
Oh, you had resistance, meaning that's
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Mhm. Yeah, I have
Got
resistance.
it.
Yeah, I'm like, patience.
Hilarious.
Give
Oh
me a
my God.
worksheet.
Give me a work. I'll do the worksheet
I'll
instead of
do
the
the
action.
worksheet. I'll worksheet my
I
my way
mean,
through life.
to be fair, mindset is an important part. Like gathering information sets the mindset and the intention, which is actually a very important piece. But my struggle was always on the execution piece. Like I need to take action and execute on the thing. So this is my attempt at that. But yeah, okay. So patience is important, I guess. Whatever.
Whatever. Whatever. All right,
So
fine.
this week I did come up with actually 4 action items.
Okay.
But they're not difficult, which would be to watch the Ali Abdal's YouTube video about the atomic habits, because there's a 30-second one that he goes through it very quickly, but he also has a longer one if you want a more in-depth explanation of all this, which I kind of feel like we covered, but it's nice to get a little recap. But really, it's identify one habit, just one habit that you want to start, and then establish what is the system and the identity. Like, who would you have to be? Like, what? Because I fancy myself a creative person, right? So I'm a creative. How can I get creative about, establishing like creating a system, right? To create content and all that. So, and then the fourth thing is write about the 4 laws. So if I do have this one habit that I want to start, how do I use the 4 laws to make sure, like we use SMART goals, but I like this sort of exercise of thinking about it in a different way, which is how can I make this obvious? How can I make it attractive, satisfying, and easy?
Okay, so 4 behavior laws. Is that what you mean? The
What did
four
I say?
laws. You said 4 laws, and
Oh,
so
right. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. The 4 behavior laws.
right. So the laws are that you have to make it obvious, attractive, satisfying, and easy.
Yeah.
So when you say write about that,
Yeah.
um,
So I'm thinking, what's one habit that I want to start?
as it relates.
I think I'm going to outsource my social media, but I do have to participate in it. I have to tell her, I have to help her create the content. So I think, um, you know, I guess it's different than a SMART goal, but it's like make it obvious. Well, for me, I would put it on a calendar, which is kind of a SMART goal. Make it attractive. One thing I've been doing is making it attractive to me means how am I going to enjoy this process, right? So I'm like either going to sit outside with some music. I'm going to put on, I like having noise in the background. So lately it's been Dune parts 1 and 2 with Timothy Chalamet, whatever his name is. I like having something on in the background. So I will literally watch 1 and 2 while I write because for some reason it just is
Yeah.
soothing.
When you said make it attractive, this is this is who I am. When you said make it attractive after saying put it on the calendar, I pictured you drawing boobs on the on the calendar on the appointment. Uh, and then you started saying really adult, reasonable things, and I thought, oh yeah, right, okay.
Sometimes I forget who I'm talking to.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, draw boobs on the
An
calendar.
eighth grade boy sense of humor. Put boobs
Exactly.
on it.
Exactly. Ashley, pull it together. Pull it together.
Hold together, woman.
Attractive.
Be professional.
Okay, be professional. You're
Be
here.
professional.
No boobs on the calendar. Got it.
No boobs on the calendar. That would be distracting, I would think.
First thing I thought when it said make it because
Attractive.
you're like, put it on the calendar. Now make it attractive.
So
Funny.
funny. Yeah. I'm glad we're not taking this too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, satisfying and easy. I think easy refers to time duration. Like if
Mm,
I think I'm going to do something for an hour, it's it
got it.
feels like a heavy burden.
Okay.
And so, and that actually is something that he talks about. He talks about to overcome procrastination, it's identify all the little baby steps and then do things in 2-minute tasks. And that helps you build momentum. So sometimes I put stuff on my calendar for 15 minutes exercise. I'll be like, he says to master the art of getting started.
After I read this book, one of the things that it talked about, I guess it's as it relates to identity, but he said, if you want to be a person that does X, you need to be a person that does Y. And so if you want to be a person that goes to the gym, you need to be a person that drives to the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I practiced, I started with putting my shoes on and I practiced driving in the parking lot. And if I wanted to go home, I went home. In first thing in the morning. And I did a couple times. And a bunch of times I went in. A person who works out, walks into the gym and and it was an
Yeah.
interesting practice, but I allowed myself the process, like you said, like that, just that little thing. I allowed myself to go to the parking lot and drive home, go to the parking lot of the gym, that is, and then
Yeah.
drive home to reinforce this, like, no, you really just, this is what you need to do. And eventually you'll get inside and you'll create that habit. And I thought it was very useful and a good way to
Yeah.
figure out like, okay, a person who does the thing I want at whatever that is going to do this. And it's a much easier way to think about it.
Yeah, what are all the little baby steps together? I remember I did bar class for a year, and for the first 6 months, I told myself just showing up is the win.
100%.
Like the class, I would come home and Bob would be like, "How was class?" And I was like, "It was ugly," but I showed up. After about 6 months, he's like, "When's it gonna get good?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'll let you know."
I
But
mean, and that, like with Bikram, I did that and I got very, very into and good at Bikram. And I mean, for a while, 20 minutes, I just would lay down.
yeah,
I gotta get through the class. Gotta not die during class. If I cannot die in this class, and eventually, right? Like eventually it was good, but I mean, I allowed myself to just make it to the end of class laying on my mat.
yeah. And to be fair, yoga is very permissive that way. Like,
Although Bikram, they frowned upon it,
oh,
but
it's true.
yeah, they frowned upon it, but I was like, I'm gonna die. Like this is a
Yeah,
hot, the room is
it's a
100,
hot yoga class. Bikram is a hot yoga
it's
class. Yeah.
90 minutes and it's 105 degrees in a carpeted room. So
I don't like those. I like the hatha, which is basically 26. It's the same thing, but it's a little less culty.
yeah. It's Beacom's totally culty, but I loved it.
Yeah, super good. Well, awesome. I feel like we have our action items, and so yeah, the next person who comes in you'll have to let me know how your action items go.
I will. I will.
We'll have to circle up and you'll have to tell me how they go. I'm going to give this assignment to the next co-host, so they're going to have to do it too, and we'll move on to the next topic.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks
thank
so
you.
much for playing along.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again real soon.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks.